The universe operates on principles we understand: physics, chemistry, the fundamental laws of cause and effect. Subspace follows predictable patterns. Warp fields obey mathematical constants. Even the Bajoran wormhole, for all its mystery, behaves according to observable rules. But what happens when three separate impossibilities converge on a single point in spacetime, each one defying every sensor, every theory, every rational explanation the Federation has carefully constructed over centuries of exploration? Deep Space Nine's operations center erupted into controlled chaos at 0847 hours, station time. Major, I'm reading a massive subspace distortion forming 200,000 kilometers off our port bow, Lieutenant Commander Jadzia Dax called from the science station, her trill spots darkening with concentration as data flooded her displays. Energy signature is... I don't even know what I'm looking at. It's not matching any known warp signature, spatial anomaly, or weapons discharge in our database. Major Kira Nerys moved swiftly to Dax's side, her Bajoran earring catching the light from the view screen. Years of resistance fighting had honed her instincts, and right now every nerve was screaming danger. Could it be the Dominion? Some new weapon? Negative, Chief Miles O'Brien's Irish accent cut through from the engineering console. The energy profile's all wrong. It's creating a rupture in normal spacetime, but the quantum signatures, he trailed off, fingers flying across his interface. Bloody hell. Whatever's coming through is massive. The view screen flickered, then stabilized to show a tear in reality itself, a jagged wound in the fabric of space where stars seemed to fold inward. Through the breach emerged a vessel that made even Kira's battle-hardened composure falter. The ship was colossal, dwarfing even a Jem'Hadar battlecruiser. 5.7 kilometers of angular, aggressive architecture that screamed military purpose from every line. Midnight blue hull plating reflected the distant stars, and along its superstructure, weapons batteries, dozens, perhaps hundreds, tracked outward in defensive postures. The name emblazoned along its port side registered on sensors, UNSC Infinity. Shields up. Red alert. Kira's command was instant. Klaxons blared throughout the station as Starfleet and Bajoran personnel scrambled to battle stations. Lieutenant Commander Worf's deep voice rumbled from tactical. The vessel is not powering weapons, Major. Defensive systems only. I am detecting what appears to be significant damage to their propulsion systems. Before Kira could respond, Dax's station erupted with fresh alerts. Major. Second anomaly forming, bearing 047 Mark 6. Different energy signature, this one's radiating exotic particles I've never seen before. A second rift tore open space itself, this one smaller, more controlled. Through it burst 7 figures moving at impossible velocities. They streaked across the view screen in blurs of red, green, blue, and gold before decelerating to hover in the vacuum between DS-9 and the massive warship. Even at this distance, sensors picked up humanoid life signs, but the biological readings were staggering. One of them is generating energy levels equivalent to a photon torpedo, Worf reported, his Klingon tactical training struggling to process the data. Another appears to be wearing a technological device that is creating solid energy constructs. A third is moving at 0.7 impulse without a ship. O'Brien's console shrieked a third warning. Here we go again. Third rupture, station side, 1,000 kilometers and closing. This breach was different, quieter, almost elegant in how it peeled back reality. Through it stepped a group of beings that made Dax's scientific curiosity override her concern. Leading them was a figure with unusual blue hair and golden eyes that seemed to perceive everything simultaneously. Around this central figure moved others, a massive wolf that crackled with storm energy, warriors whose very presence registered as localized reality distortions, and a being in black whose energy signature made the station's sensors briefly overload. 3 separate incursions, Kira said, her voice steady despite the impossibility unfolding before her. 3 groups, 3 different origins. Get Captain Sisko to ops. Now. As if summoned by the chaos, Benjamin Sisko emerged from his office, his command presence immediately centering the room. The man who served as both Starfleet captain and Bajoran emissary took in the view screen with the practiced calm of someone who had faced gods, time travelers, and cosmic entities. Still, even his eyes widened slightly. "Report, Major. 3 unknown groups have emerged from separate spatial anomalies within the last 4 minutes, Kira said crisply. 1 massive warship of unknown origin, currently dead in space with propulsion damage. 7 individuals with extraordinary abilities hovering in open space without environmental protection. And a 3rd group of approximately 10 beings whose energy signatures are. I don't have words for it, Captain." Sisko studied the view screen, where the 3 groups seemed as surprised by each other's presence as the station was by theirs. "Are they communicating with each other?" "Negative," Worf confirmed. "Though I am detecting scanning activity from all 3 groups. They are assessing each other. And probably wondering what the hell just happened," O'Brien muttered. Daxa's fingers danced across her console. "Captain, I'm picking up an automated hail from the large vessel. Audio only. They're using a frequency modulation it's definitely radio wave based, but encoded in a format I've never encountered. The universal translator is struggling." "Put it through," Sisko commanded. Static crackled, then a woman's voice, artificial, precise, with an edge that suggested vast computational power, filled ops. "This is UNSC Artificial Intelligence Cortana broadcasting on all frequencies. We have experienced a critical slip space drive malfunction and emerged in unknown space. Our navigation systems do not recognize any stellar phenomena. We are not hostile, but we are armed. To any listening, identify yourselves and your territorial claims. UNSC Infinity is currently in defensive posture and will respond to any aggressive action with overwhelming force." Before Sisko could formulate a response, a second voice, male, confident, carrying the weight of natural authority, joined the channel. "This is Superman of the Justice League. My team and I were pursuing a dimensional threat when we were pulled through an unstable portal. We mean no harm to anyone here. We're trying to understand where we are and how to return home." A third voice, younger, almost casual but underlaid with immense power, completed the impossible trinity. "Rimuru Tempest speaking. My companions and I seem to have encountered an unexpected transportation error. We're currently analyzing our surroundings. I'd appreciate it if everyone could remain calm while we figure this out. No need for hostility." Kira looked at Sisko. "Captain." Sisko's jaw set. They were in the middle of the Dominion War, resources were stretched thin, and now 3 groups of unknown, and clearly powerful, entities had appeared in Federation space simultaneously. The prophets had warned him that his path would be difficult. They had not mentioned it would be this complicated. "Open a channel," Sisko said. "All frequencies." "Channel open, sir." "This is Captain Benjamin Sisko of Deep Space Nine, a Starfleet facility. You have entered the United Federation of Planets territory, specifically the Bajoran sector. We are currently engaged in a defensive war against an aggressive power from the Gamma Quadrant. Your arrival has been noted by our sensors, and while we acknowledge your statements of non-hostility, I must inform you that we will defend this station and this system. I'm extending an invitation for diplomatic contact. We can provide information about your current location and potentially assist with your situations. But I need your cooperation." Silence hung in the void for 3 heartbeats. Then Cortana's voice returned, more measured, "Captain Sisko. The UNSC accepts your invitation for diplomatic contact. Be advised that Spartan 117 will accompany any delegation." Superman's voice followed, "We appreciate the offer, Captain. The Justice League will send representatives." Rimuru's response carried a hint of amusement. "Diplomatic contact sounds wonderful. We're always interested in meeting new people. Though I should mention, my friend Diablo is very excited to see your station. I'll try to keep him from being too enthusiastic." Dax looked at Sisko with barely contained scientific excitement. Captain, whatever just happened, we're looking at first contact with 3 separate civilizations or groups. The anthropological and scientific implications are our tertiary concerns right now, old man, Sisko said, using his affectionate nickname for the Dax symbiont. Right now, we need to figure out if these people are allies, threats, or something in between. And we need to do it before the Dominion notices we have new players on the board. If you want to see more characters enter the Star Trek universe, hit that subscribe button and drop the name of a character you'd want to see in the comments below. Live long and prosper. Worf's tactical display lit up with new contacts. Captain, I am detecting a Jem'Hadar patrol squadron approaching from the wormhole. 3 attack ships. They will be in sensor range in 7 minutes. Kira's expression hardened. They've detected the energy signatures. Sisko's mind raced. 3 unknown groups, each with capabilities that seem to defy conventional understanding. A Dominion patrol incoming. The delicate balance of the war suddenly disrupted by variables no one could have predicted. Inform our guests that we have hostile contacts approaching, Sisko ordered. And pray to the prophets that whatever happens next, we're all still here to talk about it afterward. On the view screen, the 3 groups continued their wary assessment of each other and the strange space station that watched them all. Somewhere in the distance, the Bajoran wormhole pulsed with its own mysterious energies, and within it, the prophets observed these new threads in the tapestry with ancient, nonlinear concern. The Dominion War had just become exponentially more complicated. The transporter pad in DS9's main cargo bay shimmered with the familiar blue-white energy of Federation materialization technology. Chief O'Brien stood at the controls, his experienced fingers making minute adjustments to accommodate the unusual readings he was getting from the UNSC Infinity. Their transporter technology, if that's what they even use, isn't compatible with ours, O'Brien muttered to the security detail flanking the pad. I'm having to manually compensate for their bioelectric signatures. The columns of light solidified into 2 figures. The first was a woman, or appeared to be. She stood perfectly still, her form flickering occasionally with a faint holographic shimmer. Blue-tinted skin, purple hair styled sharply, and eyes that processed information faster than any organic mind could track. Cortana's avatar regarded the cargo bay with analytical precision, her presence transmitted through a portable holographic projector attached to the armor of her companion. Master Chief Petty Officer John 117 was 7 feet of walking military perfection. His Mjolnir Mark VI armor was forest green and gold, battle-scarred but immaculately maintained. The golden visor of his helmet reflected the cargo bay's lighting, revealing nothing of the man beneath. In his hands, held at low ready but unmistakably present, was an MA-5D assault rifle. At his hip, AM-6H Magnum pistol. Across his back, additional equipment that O'Brien's engineering eye identified as grenades and what might be explosives. Weapons on a diplomatic mission, one of the security officers whispered. Would you arrive unarmed in unknown territory during a war? O'Brien countered quietly. I wouldn't. Master Chief's helmet tracked across every corner of the cargo bay, cataloging exits, cover positions, potential threats. For centuries of human military evolution had produced this Spartan, and every instinct he possessed screamed that he was in hostile territory until proven otherwise. Chief, Cortana's voice emerged from the holographic projector, addressing O'Brien. Your transporter technology is remarkable. Quantum-level matter deconstruction and reconstruction. The precision required to maintain neural pattern integrity must be extraordinary. O'Brien blinked. You analyzed our transporter in the 30 seconds you were in the beam? 27.3 seconds, Cortana corrected with something approximating a smile. I've had faster connections, but your data transfer protocols are charmingly elegant for their complexity. Before O'Brien could respond, the cargo bay doors opened. Captain Sisko entered, flanked by Major Kira, Commander Worf, and Odo. The changeling security chief's eyes, if they could be called that, fixed immediately on the armored figure with an expression that mixed professional assessment and personal curiosity. Master Chief, Sisko said, his voice carrying command authority that even a Spartan could recognize. I'm Captain Benjamin Sisko. This is my command staff. Welcome to Deep Space Nine. Master Chief's stance didn't relax, but his helmet dipped in a slight nod. When he spoke, his voice was deep, mechanical from the armor's filters, and economical. Captain. I'm Spartan 117, United Nations Space Command. This is Cortana, my AI companion. We appreciate the invitation, but I need to be direct. Where are we, and what year is it? Direct. I can work with that, Sisko said. You're in the Bajoran sector, Alpha Quadrant. The year is 2374 by Federation standard. Cortana's avatar flickered, processing. That's impossible. Our calendar year is 2552. Either we've traveled backward in time by 178 years, or we're in a different universe entirely, Odo finished, his voice carrying the liquid quality unique to changelings. One where your calendar doesn't apply because your history never happened here. Master Chief's rifle shifted fractionally. Not raised, but ready. Alternate reality. That's our working theory, Sisko confirmed. You're not the only ones who arrived today. 2 other groups materialized within minutes of your ship. We're in the process of making contact with them as well. A second transporter activation interrupted the conversation. The pad shimmered again, and 7 figures materialized in a tight formation that spoke to practice teamwork. Superman stood at the center, his iconic red and blue suit somehow commanding respect even in a room full of hardened military personnel. Beside him, Wonder Woman's warrior-bearing maid even Worf straightened slightly. Batman's dark presence seemed to absorb light, his white eyes unreadable behind his cowl. The Flash vibrated slightly, his metabolism too fast to ever truly be still. Green Lantern's ring cast a faint emerald glow. Aquaman's scaled armor and trident marked him as royalty. And Cyclops, his ruby quartz visor concealing devastating power, completed the group. The Flash looked around the cargo bay and whistled. Okay, this is definitely not the Watchtower. Nice retro aesthetic though. Very future as imagined by the 1960s. Flash, Superman's gentle rebuke carried authority. He turned to Sisko and extended his hand. Captain Sisko. I'm Kal-El of Krypton, though most call me Superman. Thank you for receiving us. Sisko shook his hand and tried not to show surprise at the carefully controlled strength in that grip. Superman. Justice League. Your reputation precedes you, in your universe, at least. Here, you're as unknown as our other guests. Batman's eyes had already catalogued Master Chief, the security detail, every structural element of the cargo bay, and the changeling whose liquid nature defied conventional biology. How many groups arrived? 3, Kira answered. Yours, the UNSC Infinity, and 1 more that's harder to classify. As if on cue, the cargo bay doors opened again, and the temperature in the room seemed to drop. Or perhaps it was the sudden weight of presence that accompanied the new arrivals. Rimuru Tempest walked in first, appearing for all the world like a young human male with unusual blue hair and golden eyes that held depths of power. Behind him moved his inner circle, Diablo, whose every step seemed to bend reality around him slightly, Benimaru, whose hand rested casually on his sword but whose eyes missed nothing, Shuna, whose gentle appearance belied the magical potency Dax's sensors had detected, Ranga, the massive Tempest Star Wolf who had shrunk himself to merely horse-sized for indoor convenience, and others, each radiating their own unique presence. Odo's liquid form rippled. He had sensed something the moment this group materialized, a kinship he had never felt except in the presence of other changelings. His eyes locked on Rimuru, and some fundamental truth passed between them. You're a shapeshifter, Odo said, not quite a question. Rimuru smiled, and there was ancient knowledge in that expression despite his youthful appearance. Among other things. You are too. Though your nature is different from mine. Fascinating. Shapeshifter, Kira's hand moved toward her phaser, then stopped when Sisko raised a hand. "I am Constable Odo, head of security for this station," Odo said, his voice carrying a weight of personal significance. "I am what's called a changeling. My people are the founders of the Dominion, the same force this station is currently at war with." Diablo's demonic grin widened. "How delightful. Civil war among gods." "Diablo," Rimuru's voice carried a note of warning. "Manners." "Of course, Rimuru-sama," Diablo said, though the predatory gleam in his eyes didn't diminish. The cargo bay had become a powder keg of power. Master Chief's tactical assessment tagged multiple threats: the man in blue who could apparently survive hard vacuum, the one in black whose utility belt suggested extensive preparation, the being whose sword hand never strayed far from his weapon, and the massive wolf whose storm cloud fur crackled with barely suppressed lightning. Superman's enhanced hearing picked up Master Chief's elevated heart rate, controlled, but present. The Spartan was ready for a fight. So was Batman, whose posture suggested he'd already calculated 17 escape routes and 23 potential weapons in the immediate environment. "Gentlemen. Ladies," Sisko said, his voice cutting through the tension. "I understand you're all in unfamiliar territory. I understand you're assessing threats. But let me be clear, this station is neutral ground. Whatever capabilities you possess, whatever wars you've fought in your own realities, here you are guests. Behave accordingly." Worf growled low approval. The human captain spoke like a Klingon warrior, respectfully, but without submission. "Captain's right," Rimuru said easily, and his casual tone somehow diffused the room's tension more effectively than commands could have. "We're all confused, probably worried about our people back home, and standing in a cargo bay trying to look tough. How about we sit down, share information, and figure out what happened?" "Agreed," Superman said. "We're not enemies. Not unless someone makes us enemies." Master Chief's rifle finally lowered to a fully neutral position. The Chief's pragmatic. "Information exchange benefits everyone. Then let's move this to somewhere more comfortable than a cargo bay," Sisko said. "Quark's bar has a holosuit large enough for all of us, and we can talk without weapons pointing at each other." "Weapons stay with us," Master Chief said flatly. "Wouldn't dream of asking otherwise," Sisko replied. "But the same rules apply to everyone." As the groups began to file toward the cargo bay exit, Odo moved beside Rimuru. "You're shape-shifting. It's not like mine. You're not a changeling." "No," Rimuru confirmed. "I'm something else. But I understand what it means to be different from those around you. To question where you came from. The founders believe they must control solids, non-shapeshifters, to ensure their own survival," Odo said quietly. "They've built an empire on that fear. What do you believe?" Rimuru's golden eyes met Odo's liquid gaze. "I believe that different beings can coexist if they choose to. That power doesn't have to mean domination. But I also know that's an easy philosophy when you're strong enough that no one can threaten you." "An honest answer," Odo said. "That's rare in my experience." Ahead of them, Dax was bombarding Superman with questions about Kryptonian biology while Batman silently observed everything. The Flash had struck up a conversation with Cortana about processing speeds. Wonder Woman walked beside Worf, two warriors acknowledging each other's presence without words needing to be spoken. And on the view screen in Ops, unwatched for the moment, 3 Jem'Hadar attack ships continued their approach, their Vorta commanders reporting to the Founders that unknown vessels had been detected near Deep Space Nine. The Dominion was about to learn that the war had changed. They just didn't know how much. The 3 Jem'Hadar attack ships dropped out of warp in perfect formation, their gray hulls bristling with polaron beam arrays and photon torpedo launchers. On the lead ship's bridge, First Ikad Ika stood rigidly beside Vorta Supervisor Kivan, both staring at the view screen with growing confusion. "Explain this," Kivan demanded, his genetically programmed courtesy failing to mask his irritation. "Our sensors detected massive energy discharges. Where are the Federation reinforcements? Ika, a veteran of 17 battles who had personally killed 43 Federation officers, studied the tactical display with the calculating precision that made Jem'Hadar the most feared soldiers in the quadrant. That vessel, he pointed to the UNSC Infinity, still holding position 200,000 kilometers from DS9. It matches no known configuration. Length exceeds 5 kilometers. Weapons batteries number in the hundreds. Armor composition unknown. The founders will want intelligence, Keevan said. Hail them. Standard Dominion greeting. On the Infinity's bridge, Cortana's holographic form materialized on the central platform. Captain Thomas Lasky, a battle-hardened veteran of the Human Covenant War, looked up from the damage reports that covered his tactical displays. The slip space drive was completely offline, casualties were minimal but present, and they were stranded in a universe that apparently thought faster-than-light travel involved warp cores, instead of rupturing normal spacetime. Captain, we're being hailed, Cortana announced. Audio only. Translation matrix is struggling. The language structure is completely foreign, but I'm picking up repetitive mathematical patterns that suggest intentional communication. Put it through, Lasky ordered. And get me a tactical assessment of those ships. The bridge speakers crackled. Cortana's translation, synthesized and uncertain, followed. Vessel, you have entered Dominion space. Identify yourselves and prepare to be boarded for inspection. Resistance will be met with. The translation broke down into static, then clarified. Destruction. The founders demand compliance. Lasky's jaw tightened. He'd heard similar demands before. The Covenant had made them for 30 years while glassing human colonies. Cortana, analysis. 3 ships, each approximately 600 meters. Energy weapons, some kind of directed particle beam, not plasma-based. Sublight drives only, no slip space or apparent warp capability detected. They're scanning us, Captain. Actively probing our shields. Hostile action, Master Chief's voice cut through the ship-wide comm from DS9. Captain, recommend defensive posture. These are the same ships DS9 identified as their enemy combatants. Lasky had commanded the Infinity through battles that made conventional warfare look like playground disputes. Forerunner installations, Promethean constructs, created forces. The UNSC had survived extinction-level threats through superior firepower and refusal to surrender. He wasn't about to start now. Cortana, open a channel. All frequencies. Channel open, sir. Attention unidentified vessels. This is Captain Thomas Lasky of the UNSC Infinity. We are not part of your conflict, and we do not recognize your authority. Any attempt to board this ship will be considered an act of war and will be met with lethal force. Break off your approach immediately. On the Jem'Hadar bridge, Keevan's eyes widened. They refuse. They dare refuse the Dominion. Ikatike's expression didn't change, but his hand moved to the weapons console. They are either ignorant or confident. I recommend a demonstration of Dominion power. Agreed, Keevan said. Target their propulsion systems. Disable, don't destroy. The founders will want that ship intact. The lead Jem'Hadar vessel opened fire. Polaron beams, phased particle weapons designed specifically to penetrate Federation shields, lanced across the void toward the Infinity's aft section. The beam struck the Infinity's energy shields and dissipated like water against a dam. Cortana's voice held a note of satisfaction. Their weapons are operating on a completely different principle than Covenant plasma. Our shields are barely registering the impact. 60 terajoules of energy absorbed. Shield strength at 99.7%. Return fire, Lasky ordered. Mac rounds. Single shot. Targeting solution on the lead ship's forward section. Warning shot across their bow. The Infinity's M4093 Hyperion nuclear delivery system, a magnetic accelerator cannon that fired 3,000-ton slugs at 4% the speed of light, discharged with a thunderclap of electromagnetic energy. The round screamed past the Jem'Hadar lead ship with less than 50 meters clearance, moving so fast that the Dominion sensors barely registered it before it was gone. Ika had fought the Klingon, whose disruptors could vaporize hull plating. He had faced the Romulans, whose plasma torpedoes could crack a ship in half. He had never seen a weapon that moved that fast using kinetic energy alone. Evasive, he barked, but the round was already past them, continuing its trajectory toward empty space where it would travel for centuries until gravity eventually captured it. Calculate the impact force if that had struck us, Kivan whispered. Ika's tactical computer ran the numbers. The result made even his genetically programmed loyalty falter. Total destruction. The kinetic energy alone would have vaporized our ship and debris field would have endangered the other vessels. On DS9, Sisko watched the engagement from Ops while simultaneously monitoring the diplomatic meeting in Quark's holosuit. They fired a warning shot that could have destroyed a planet if it had hit one. The UNSC does not make idle threats, O'Brien observed, studying the sensor data. That weapon. Captain, I don't think that was even their main armament. The Infinity has dozens of those cannons. Plus what looks like missile batteries, point defense systems, and energy weapons we haven't even seen yet. Dax looked up from her console, her scientific excitement barely contained. Benjamin, that projectile was moving at 12,000 kilometers per second. The energy required to accelerate that mass to that velocity is, it's several orders of magnitude beyond anything the Federation or Dominion can produce. Kira's tactical experience cut through the technical discussion. They're showing restraint. They could have destroyed those ships, but they didn't. They're sending a message. The same message we need these Jem'Hadar to take back to the Founders, Sisko said. He opened a channel. Jem'Hadar vessels, this is Captain Sisko. The ship you just engaged is under Deep Space Nine's diplomatic protection. Stand down immediately or face consequences from both the Federation and our guests. In the holosuit, the Justice League, Rimuru's Circle, and Master Chief, who had returned via communicator link to monitor the situation, listened to the engagement through the station's internal systems. Superman's jaw tightened. They fired first. Their soldiers following orders, Wonder Woman observed. The question is whether their commanders will recognize they're outmatched. Batman had been silent, analyzing everything he'd learned about this universe's political situation. The Dominion is an authoritarian regime built on genetic engineering and absolute obedience. Soldiers who can't question orders. Leaders who see resistance as heresy. They won't back down from a warning shot. They'll escalate. Then we should be there, Cyclops said. If this turns into a battle, we can help. Or make it worse, Rimuru countered gently. We're unknown variables. If we show too much power too quickly, we become threats instead of allies. Captain Sisko is trying to navigate a diplomatic solution. We should respect that. Diablo's demon eyes gleamed. Though if diplomacy fails, Rimuru-sama, I would very much enjoy demonstrating why challenging us is inadvisable. Noted, Diablo. And denied. Rimuru turned to Master Chief's holographic avatar, transmitted from the Infinity. Your captain showed restraint. That was wise. The UNSC learned restraint the hard way, Master Chief replied. 30 years fighting the Covenant taught us when to hold fire and when to pull the trigger. Captain Lasky knows the difference. On the Jem'Hadar bridge, Kivan was frantically transmitting to Dominion Command. Unknown vessel of unprecedented power, request immediate reinforcement. The response came swiftly. A woman's voice, cold and absolute, this is the female changeling. You will withdraw and observe. Do not engage further until we understand what we face. The Founders will not risk resources on ignorance. Kivan's relief was palpable. The Founders had spoken. Acknowledged, Founder. Glory to the Founders. Ika began inputting coordinates for tactical withdrawal, but his eyes remained fixed on the massive human warship. In his 17 battles, he had learned that victory belonged to those who adapted fastest. The Dominion had never faced an enemy like this. That concerned him more than he would admit. The 3 Jem'Hadar ships withdrew to a respectful distance, still within sensor range but clearly no longer aggressive. On DS9, Sisko allowed himself a small breath of relief. First contact with 3 separate groups, a near battle with the Dominion, and somehow no casualties. Yet. Major, keep a close eye on those ships, Sisko ordered. And get me an updated tactical assessment of the Infinity. If the Dominion comes back with reinforcements, I want to know if our new friends can handle it. If that demonstration was any indication, Worf rumbled with unmistakable approval, they can handle considerably more than 3 attack ships. That was impressive. In the Hullasuit, the diplomatic assembly had gone quiet, all of them processing what they'd just witnessed. The UNSC had demonstrated overwhelming force while simultaneously showing they wouldn't fire first. The Dominion had learned that the balance of power in this sector had shifted dramatically. And in the Gamma Quadrant, on the Founder's homeworld, the female changeling studied reports of the 3 arrivals with growing concern. Unknown technology. Unknown capabilities. Unknown intentions. The Great Link had maintained control through superior intelligence and military force. Now, 3 variables had entered the equation that might upset everything the Founders had built. She would need to know more. Much more. And she knew exactly who to send to gather that information. Quark's Hullasuit had been hastily reprogrammed from its usual, recreational settings into a neutral conference space. The Ferengi bartender had protested loudly about lost profits until Odo threatened to audit his tax records for the 3rd time that month. Now the room displayed a circular table large enough to accommodate representatives from all 3 groups, with Deep Space Nine's command staff seated as mediators. Captain Sisko sat at the head of the table, flanked by Kira and Dax. To his right, Superman, Wonder Woman, and Batman represented the Justice League, with the others standing watch by the walls. To his left, Master Chief stood rather than sat, his armor making conventional seating impractical, while Cortana's holographic form flickered from a portable projector at his side. Across from Sisko, Rimuru sat comfortably with Benimuru and Diablo flanking him, while Shuna prepared what appeared to be tea using magically conjured implements that made Dax's scientific instruments go haywire. Before we begin, Sisko said, I want to establish some ground rules. First, everything discussed here remains confidential unless all parties agree otherwise. Second, we're here to share information and find common ground, not to negotiate military alliances or territorial claims. Third, Odo interrupted from his position by the door, everyone in this room could probably destroy this station if they wanted to. So let's all agree not to. Batman's lips quirked in what might have been approval. Direct. I appreciate that. The changeling has a point, Diablo purred, his demon eyes tracking across the assembled group. Such magnificent power gathered in one place. It would be a shame to waste it on petty destruction. Diablo, Rimuru said without looking at him. You're being creepy again. My apologies, Rimuru-sama. Wonder Woman studied the interaction with interest. You command loyalty through respect, not fear. That's rare among those with your level of power. I had good teachers, Rimuru replied. And I learned early that fear-based leadership eventually collapses. People, or demons, work better when they choose to follow you. A philosophy the Founders would find incomprehensible, Odo observed quietly. They believe control is the only path to security. Master Chief's helmet turned toward Odo. We've fought enemies like that. The Covenant believed humanity needed to be exterminated for religious reasons. Spent 30 years trying. We're still here. Religious war, Sisko said. That's what brought your ship here. Indirectly, Cortana answered. The Covenant War ended in 2552, but the peace was complicated. We were dealing with a rogue AI faction called the Created when the slip space drive malfunctioned. The specifics are classified, but the short version is we tore a hole between dimensions and fell through. Dax leaned forward. Slip space. You mentioned that before. It's not warp drive, is it? Completely different principle, Cortana confirmed. Warp drive, from what I've analyzed of your systems, works by creating a subspace bubble that moves through normal spacetime. Slip space literally ruptures the barrier between normal space and an alternate dimension we call slipstream space. Transit occurs outside conventional spacetime entirely. Dax's eyes widened. That's extraordinarily dangerous. The energy requirements alone must be astronomical, and the risk of dimensional bleeding is precisely what happened to us, Cortana finished. The rupture didn't close properly. We fell through into your reality. Superman had been listening quietly, his superhearing picking up every word, every heartbeat, every subvocal tension in the room. Our arrival was different. We were fighting someone called Epoch, a time-traveling villain trying to rewrite history. The Justice League pursued him through a temporal vortex that changed. Became something else. Something that pulled us sideways through reality instead of through time. And your group? Sisko looked at Rimuru. Rimuru accepted a cup of tea from Shuna before answering. We were testing long-range teleportation magic. My subordinates and I had just finished a major war, what we call the Tenma War, against an enemy empire. We won, but it left our nation's magical infrastructure damaged. We were attempting to establish new transportation networks when something interfered with the spell matrix. He paused, sipping the tea. Actually, I think our spell might have intersected with both of your arrival events. 3 separate dimensional breaches happening simultaneously could have created a resonance cascade that pulled all of us to the same location. Magic, Master Chief said flatly. Advanced technology that you don't understand yet, Rimuru replied with a slight smile. Isn't that Clark's third law from your reality? Any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. I'm just working from the other direction, magic that's become so refined it resembles technology. Batman's detective instincts engaged. You're dodging the real question. What you call magic, it works here. In this universe? Perfectly, Rimuru confirmed. Though I'm having to adjust the magical formulas slightly. The laws of physics are similar but not identical. Seal is running constant calculations to compensate. Seal? Kira asked. My ultimate skill, Rimuru explained. Think of her as an AI integrated directly into my consciousness. She handles complex calculations, threat assessment, information processing. Similar to Cortana's relationship with the Master Chief, but more intimate. Cortana's avatar tilted its head. Fascinating. Biological computational enhancement through what you're calling magic. I'd love to compare processing architectures. I'm sure Seal would enjoy that, Rimuru said. Sisko raised his hands. This is all fascinating, but we need to address the practical situation. You're all stranded here, at least temporarily. You've all just witnessed a near battle between the UNSC Infinity and Dominion forces. The Dominion is now aware of your presence, which means they're analyzing you as either threats or opportunities. I need to know, what are your intentions while you're here? The room fell silent. Each group exchanged glances, internal communications passing through looks, subtle gestures, and in Cortana's case, direct digital interface with the Infinity. Master Chief spoke first. The UNSC's primary mission is to get home. Our war isn't here. But we're not going to stand by if we see civilians being slaughtered. The captain won't allow it, and neither will I. The Justice League protects people, Superman said simply. That's what we do. Whether they're from our Earth or yours doesn't change that principle. But we also don't interfere in sovereign governments without just cause. We'll need to understand more about your war before we commit to any action. A refreshingly cautious approach, Batman added. Especially given that we could be manipulated by one side or another. We've seen that happen before. All eyes turned to Rimuru, who set down his teacup and folded his hands. My nation, the Rimuru Tempest Federation, has a policy of defensive action and diplomatic engagement. We don't seek conquest, but we also don't ignore injustice. If your dominion is built on slavery and genetic engineering that removes free will, then they're fundamentally opposed to everything my federation stands for. He met Sisko's eyes directly. But I'm also aware that I'm a guest in your universe. Your federation has its own principles, like this prime directive I've heard mentioned. I'll respect that, to a point. If I witness genocide, slavery, or similar atrocities, my conscience won't allow inaction regardless of local customs. Understood, Sisko said. And appreciated for the honesty. The Prime Directive technically only applies to pre-warp civilizations, and you clearly exceed that threshold. But I need all of you to understand something. He stood, his command presence filling the room. The Dominion War has killed billions. Entire worlds have been conquered or destroyed. The Federation is fighting for its survival against an enemy that sees us as lesser beings to be controlled or eliminated. We've made moral compromises, formed alliances with former enemies, and done things that would have been unthinkable 5 years ago. He paused, looking at each group in turn. You represent power that could end this war overnight. Superman alone could probably disable every Dominion ship in the quadrant. The UNSC's weapons could sterilize the Founder's homeworld from orbit. And Rimuru, Sisko shook his head. I don't even know what your upper limits are. But I'm asking you, begging you, not to become conquerors. Don't become another threat we have to face. Wonder Woman stood, her warriors bearing radiating respect. Captain Sisko. You lead with wisdom and caution. That tells me your federation is worth defending. The Justice League will not act unilaterally. We'll consult with you and respect your knowledge of this conflict. The UNSC will do the same, Master Chief confirmed. We've learned what happens when you act without understanding local politics. It ends badly for everyone. Rimuru nodded. Agreed. Though I do want to understand more about these founders. Odo, you're one of them. Odo's liquid form rippled uncomfortably. I am a changeling, yes. But I was raised by solids, non-shapeshifters. The Founders sent out 100 infant changelings centuries ago to explore the galaxy and return with information. I was one of them. I only learned of the Dominion and my people's role as its leaders 5 years ago. And now you fight against your own people, Diablo observed. How deliciously tragic. I fight for justice, Odo said firmly. Something the Founders have forgotten in their obsession with control. They've built an empire on the belief that solids are inherently chaotic and must be dominated for the Founders' own protection. It's a philosophy born from ancient persecution and fear. Benimaru leaned forward. This sounds familiar. Rimuru-sama, wasn't there a similar situation with the Eastern Empire? The nobles who believed they were superior and had the right to rule over others? Similar, yes, Rimuru agreed. And we handled it through diplomacy first, then overwhelming demonstration of force when diplomacy failed. The key difference was that we offered them a genuine alternative, join our federation as equals or face the consequences of continued aggression. The Founders won't accept equality, Odo said quietly. They see themselves as gods among mortals. The very concept of negotiating as equals would be incomprehensible to them. Batman's tactical mind was already processing scenarios. Then we need leverage. Something that makes negotiation their only viable option. But that requires understanding their military capabilities, political structure, and psychological vulnerabilities. Intelligence gathering, Kira said. Which is exactly what they're doing right now about you. Those Jem'Hadar ships withdrew, but they're still watching. Analyzing. Reporting back to the Founders. The Holosuit's communication system chirped. O'Brien's voice came through, tense. "Captain, we're detecting a Dominion fleet assembling in the Gamma Quadrant, just on the other side of the wormhole. 15 ships so far. They're not moving yet, but they're definitely preparing for something." Sisko's expression hardened. "They're preparing a response. Probably a show of force to test whether the Infinity's demonstration was a bluff." "It wasn't," Master Chief said simply. "Then we're about to have a much larger problem," Sisko said. He looked around the table. "Gentlemen, ladies, welcome to the Dominion War. I hope you're ready for what comes next." Through the holosuit's windows, they could see the wormhole in the distance, its swirling energies pulsing with otherworldly light. And somewhere beyond it, the Founders were making their own calculations about these new variables. The female changeling had already dispatched her most trusted operative, a Vorta named Wayan, to assess the situation personally. And with him, she was sending something the Federation had never seen before, a new breed of Jem'Hadar, enhanced with genetic modifications specifically designed to counter superior firepower. The Dominion was adapting. The question was whether it would be fast enough. The USS Defiant cut through space at maximum warp, returning from a patrol of the Cardassian border. On the bridge, Commander Worf received the priority transmission from DS9 with his characteristic stoic expression, though his eyes widened fractionally as he processed the information. "Commander," Lieutenant Nog said from the helm, his Ferengi hearing picking up the shift in Worf's breathing. "Is everything all right at the station?" "Define, all right," Worf muttered. He forwarded the briefing to his console and read it twice to ensure he hadn't misunderstood. 3 separate groups. Unprecedented technology. Dominion fleet assembling. He looked up. Increase to maximum warp. We are needed at Deep Space Nine immediately. Sir, at maximum warp we'll burn out the plasma regulators. Then we will replace them when we arrive, Worf interrupted. Engage. The Defiant's engines screamed as they pushed beyond recommended operational parameters. Worf studied the sensor data that DS9 had transmitted, energy signatures that made no sense, a warship larger than anything the Federation had ever constructed, and life-form readings that defied conventional biology. And then there was the mention of Klingon Chancellor Martok requesting permission to bring a fleet to DS9 to greet these warriors personally. Worf allowed himself a slight smile. Of course Martok would see this as an opportunity. The old warrior had been eager to test himself against worthy opponents ever since escaping Dominion captivity. The arrival of 3 groups of unknown combatants would be irresistible to him. 30 minutes later, the Defiant dropped out of warp near DS9 and immediately detected the new arrivals. Worf's tactical display lit up with warnings about the UNSC Infinity, warnings that scrolled past faster than he could read them as the computer attempted to catalog the alien vessel's weapons systems. By Collis, Worf breathed. That is a warship worthy of song. On DS9, Sisko stood in ops reviewing deployment patterns when the Defiant's arrival registered on sensors. Moments later, his comm badge chirped. Worf to Captain Sisko. I am returning to the station. Permission to dock. Granted, Commander. Report to ops immediately upon arrival. We have a situation developing. I am aware, Captain. Chancellor Martok will be arriving within the hour with 6 birds of prey. He wishes to meet these warriors. Sisko closed his eyes briefly. Of course he does. Inform the Chancellor that this is a diplomatic situation, not a battle. I will relay your message, Captain. Though I suspect he will interpret diplomatic situation as opportunity to establish honorable relations through displays of martial prowess. Just try to keep him from starting an incident, Commander. 20 minutes later, in the station's wardroom, Master Chief stood with his arms crossed while Captain Lasky's holographic avatar briefed him on the Infinity's status. The slip space drive remained offline, repairs were progressing slowly without proper facilities, and the crew was growing restless. We need to make a decision, Chief, Lasky said. Do we stay isolated and work on repairs, or do we start integrating with the local powers? The Federation has offered engineering support, but accepting it means sharing our technology. The UNSC doesn't share military secrets with unknowns, Master Chief replied. But we also can't repair the drive without resources we don't have. Cortana. The AI's avatar materialized beside them. I've been analyzing the Federation's technological database, what they've been willing to share, anyway. Their warp drive technology operates on completely different principles, but their understanding of subspace mechanics might help us stabilize the slipspace manifold. I'd need to work directly with their engineers. Which means sharing information, Master Chief said. Controlled sharing, Cortana corrected. I can provide theoretical frameworks without revealing classified specifications. Think of it as collaborative problem solving. The captain won't like it. The captain doesn't have a choice unless he wants the Infinity stranded here permanently, Cortana said bluntly. We're in a war zone, John. The longer we stay isolated, the more likely we become targets or get drawn into conflicts we don't understand. Before Master Chief could respond, the wardroom's view screen activated. Worf's face appeared, his Klingon features set in an expression that might have been curiosity or challenge. With Worf, it was hard to tell. Master Chief. I am Lieutenant Commander Worf, First Officer of the USS Defiant and former Security Chief of this station. I would speak with you about warrior matters. Master Chief's helmet tilted slightly. Warrior matters. You are a soldier. I am a soldier. I wish to understand your capabilities and your code of honor. Chancellor Martok of the Klingon Empire will arrive shortly with similar questions. It would be diplomatic if we spoke first. Cortana's avatar smiled. I think he wants to size you up before his boss does. I heard that, Worf growled, though without real anger. The AI is perceptive. Yes. Martok will wish to test you, perhaps challenge you to combat. It is the Klingon way. I am offering you warning and context so you do not accidentally start a war through cultural misunderstanding. Appreciated, Master Chief said. I'll meet you in the station's main hall. 20 minutes. Acceptable. Worf's expression shifted slightly. I have reviewed the sensor data from your engagement with the Jem'Hadar vessels. Your restraint was notable. Many warriors would have destroyed the enemy ships to establish dominance. Restraint is tactical, Master Chief replied. Dead enemies can't report back to their commanders. Live enemies spread fear more effectively than corpses. Worf's eyes gleamed with something approaching approval. You think like a Klingon. This conversation will be interesting. The screen went dark. Cortana looked at Master Chief with concern. You know he's going to want to fight you, right? That's what all this warrior matters talk means. I know. And you're going to do it. If it establishes respect and prevents misunderstandings, yes. Better a controlled sparring match than a diplomatic incident later. Meanwhile, in another section of the station, Superman floated cross-legged in one of the cargo bays that had been cleared for the Justice League's use. His enhanced hearing tracked every conversation on the station, every engine hum, every heartbeat. The Flash sat against the wall, vibrating slightly as he processed downloaded information about the Federation at super speed. This universe is weird, Flash said. They have faster-than-light travel, but their computers are less advanced than what we had in the 1990s. They can rearrange matter at the molecular level with these replicator things, but they still use physical controls instead of neural interfaces. It's like they advanced in some directions and not others. Different technological evolution. Batman's voice came from the shadows where he'd been observing the station's security systems. They focused on space travel and energy manipulation. We developed computer technology and miniaturization. Neither approach is superior, just different priorities. Wonder Woman entered the bay, her warrior's instincts immediately noting Batman's hidden position and Superman's meditative state. The station's security chief wants to meet with us. Odo. The Shapeshifter. The one whose people are leading the enemy faction, Batman said. Interesting timing. He wants to assess whether we're threats to his station. Or whether we can help him understand Rimuru, Superman said, opening his eyes. He seemed fascinated by another shapeshifter. I could hear his heartbeat accelerate when Rimuru confirmed his nature. Identity crisis, Flash said. Guy's been alone his whole life, finds out he's part of this big evil empire, and now suddenly there's another shapeshifter who built a peaceful nation instead of a conquering one. That's gotta mess with your head. Then we should meet with him, Wonder Woman decided. Understanding the local politics is crucial if we're going to be here for any length of time. In Quark's bar, the Ferengi proprietor was having the most profitable afternoon of his career. The arrival of 3 new groups meant curious personnel flooding the establishment, buying drinks and speculating wildly about the newcomers. Quark was charging triple rates and smiling broadly. That smile vanished when Rimuru Tempest walked in with Benimaru, Shuna, and Diablo. Welcome, welcome. Quark's practiced hospitality kicked in immediately. First round is on the house for our distinguished guests. How generous, Diablo purred, his demon eyes scanning the establishment with predatory interest. Though I suspect this generosity will be factored into subsequent prices. I have no idea what you're implying, Quark said innocently. Can I interest you in some canner? Romulan ale. Synthahol if you prefer to stay sober. Rimuru slid onto a barstool with casual ease. Actually, I'm curious about your replicator technology. Shuna here is fascinated by the idea of matter reconstruction from energy patterns. Could we see how it works? Quark's lobes tingled with opportunity. For a small fee, I could provide a detailed demonstration. Or, Benimaru said quietly, his hand resting on his sword hilt, you could provide a free demonstration to avoid insulting powerful visitors who might take offense at being charged for basic information. Quark's survival instincts warred with his profit motive. Survival 1. Free demonstration it is. Right this way. As Quark led them toward the replicator, Odo materialized from a wall panel where he'd been observing in liquid form. Rimuru turned to face him with a smile that suggested he'd known the changeling was there all along. Constable Odo. Spying or protecting? Both, Odo admitted. It's my job to ensure station security. That includes understanding everyone aboard. Fair enough, Rimuru said. Want to join us? I'm genuinely interested in how replicators work. My nation has similar technology, but the principles might be different. Odo studied him for a long moment. You're not bothered by my presence. Most solids, non-shapeshifters, find my abilities unsettling. I've been a slime, a dragon, a human, and about 50 other forms, Rimuru replied casually. Shape-changing doesn't bother me. What bothers me is when people use their abilities to hurt others. Do you? I try not to, Odo said quietly. Though the founders who created me would disagree with my methods. Then you and I will probably get along fine. The wardroom door opened, and Worf entered to find Master Chief already waiting. The Klingon warrior stopped, assessing the Spartan with a tactical eye that recognized combat experience when he saw it. You are taller than reported, Worf observed. Genetic augmentation and powered armor, Master Chief replied. You're a Klingon. The reports mentioned your species values honor and combat prowess. Among other things, Worf said. We also value honesty and directness. So I will be direct, Chancellor Martok will challenge you when he arrives. It is his way of establishing whether you are worthy of respect. How you respond will determine the Klingon Empire's attitude toward your people. What kind of challenge? Combat. Non-lethal, but vigorous. He will want to test your skills personally. Master Chief considered this. In his decades of combat, he'd faced countless enemies. But this wasn't an enemy, this was a potential ally testing his mettle through cultural ritual. Acceptable, Master Chief said. Rules. Batleths, Klingon-bladed weapons. First blood or submission. Martok fights with honor, but he does not hold back. Good, Master Chief replied. Neither do I. Worf's expression shifted into something that might have been a smile. I believe I am going to enjoy this. Outside, the Dominion fleet continued to assemble. 15 ships had become 20, then 25. The female changeling was committing significant resources to this confrontation, and every sensor on DS9 tracked their movements with growing concern. The storm was building. And at its center were three groups of warriors who had no idea they were about to become the focal point of a war that would determine the Alpha Quadrant's future. Chancellor Martok's flagship, the IKS Rotaran, dropped out of warp with 5 birds of prey in perfect attack formation. The Klingon warriors aboard sang battle songs as they approached Deep Space Nine, their voices echoing through the corridors in anticipation of meeting these new warriors who had defied the Dominion. On the Rotaran's bridge, Martok stood with his one good eye fixed on the view screen, studying the UNSC Infinity with the appreciation of a veteran who recognized superior firepower when he saw it. A ship of that size could crack worlds, Martok rumbled to his first officer. And the Federation says they fired a warning shot that could have vaporized our entire fleet. These humans know war. The reports also mention 7 warriors who can survive in vacuum, his first officer added. And a group led by a shapeshifter who claims to rule a peaceful nation. Martok laughed, a deep booming sound. A shapeshifter who doesn't conquer. That I must see to believe. Changelings are deceptive by nature. Even our Honorable Odo cannot fully escape his people's legacy. Chancellor, DS9 is hailing us. Put them through. Sisko's face appeared on the screen. Chancellor Martok. Welcome to Deep Space Nine. I trust your journey was uneventful. Too uneventful, Captain. We came hoping for glory and found only empty space. But I hear you have warriors here who might provide better entertainment. Chancellor, this is a diplomatic situation. Everything is a diplomatic situation until someone draws a blade, Martok interrupted cheerfully. I wish to meet these newcomers. Particularly the one they call Master Chief. A warrior who fights in armor and shows restraint against inferior opponents, that is a warrior I would test personally. Sisko sighed. He'd expected this. The Master Chief has agreed to meet with you, Chancellor. But I'm asking you to remember that these people are not familiar with Klingon customs. If you challenge him to combat, make sure he understands it's a test of respect, not a genuine attempt to kill him. Where is the fun in that? Martok grinned. But very well, Captain. I will use practice batleths. Probably. He cut the transmission before Sisko could protest. In the station's cargo bay, Master Chief stood in a cleared space while Worf demonstrated the proper grip and stance for wielding a batleth. The curved Klingon blade was designed for someone of normal human proportions, which meant it felt slightly small in the Spartan's armored hands. The batleth is an extension of the warrior's body, Worf explained, moving through a series of forms with practiced precision. It is both offensive and defensive. The outer blades cut, the inner grips allow for close combat, and the weight distribution permits rapid strikes and blocks. Master Chief replicated the movements with mechanical precision, his enhanced reflexes and Mjolnir armor's neural interface translating Worf's demonstration into muscle memory almost instantly. After 3 minutes, he was executing forms that would have taken an ordinary student months to learn. Worf stopped mid-demonstration, studying the Spartan with new appreciation. You learn quickly. Pattern recognition and adaptive muscle memory, Cortana's voice came through the Chief's armor speakers. Also, I'm running combat simulations based on Worf's movements and feeding optimal responses directly to John's HUD. That is, efficient, Worf admitted. Though it lacks the spiritual component of true martial mastery. Respectfully, Commander, the Chiefs fought hand-to-hand against 8-foot-tall aliens who can flip tanks, Cortana replied. I think his spiritual center is fine. The cargo bay doors opened. Martok strode in with 4 warriors at his back, each carrying ceremonial bat'leths. The Chancellor's scarred face split into a wide grin as he took in the armored Spartan. "So you are the one who fires weapons that could shatter planets. Master Chief, they call you. I am Martok, Chancellor of the Klingon High Council, and I have come to see if your prowess matches your reputation." Master Chief turned to face Martok, the bat'leth held at a neutral ready position. "Chancellor. I understand you want to test me in combat." "Test? No, no, no," Martok laughed. "I want to fight you. There is a difference. Testing implies uncertainty. Fighting implies mutual respect between warriors." He selected a bat'leth from his honor guard and tossed aside the ceremonial weapon in favor of a battle-worn blade. "This one has killed 17 enemies. It will serve." Worf stepped forward. "Chancellor, perhaps we should establish parameters." "First blood or submission," Martok said dismissively. "Standard Klingon honor combat. The human is armored, so I will consider first blood to be any strike that would have drawn blood without the armor." He looked at Master Chief. "Unless you wish to remove your protection to make it more sporting." "The armor stays," Master Chief said flatly. "But I'll agree to your terms." "Excellent." Martok moved to the center of the cargo bay. His warriors began a rhythmic chanting, a traditional Klingon battle song that echoed off the walls. Other station personnel had gathered at the edges of the bay. Word had spread quickly that the Chancellor was about to fight one of the newcomers. Superman, Wonder Woman, and Batman arrived, drawn by the commotion. Wonder Woman's eyes lit up with warriors' recognition. "An honor duel. I've seen similar challenges on Themyscira. Should we stop this?" Superman asked. "Why?" Batman replied. "The Chief can handle himself. And we might learn something about local power structures by watching." Rimuru appeared moments later with Benimaru and Diablo. The demon's eyes gleamed with predatory interest. "Oh, how delightful. Ritual combat. Rimuru-sama, may I participate next?" "Absolutely not," Rimuru said. "You'd probably kill someone by accident and start an interstellar incident. I would be very careful." "No, Diablo." Martok and Master Chief circled each other. The Klingon moved with the confidence of decades of combat experience, his single eye tracking the Spartan's movements with tactical precision. Master Chief's HUD painted threat assessments across his visor, calculating strike angles and optimal responses. "Spartans never die," Cortana whispered through his private channel. "They just respawn and try again. Don't make me test that theory." Martok struck first, a sweeping overhead blow designed to test the Chief's reflexes. The Spartan blocked with textbook precision, metal ringing against metal. Martok immediately transitioned into a low sweep that would have disemboweled an unarmored opponent. Master Chief pivoted, using his armor's enhanced strength to not just block but redirect the blade, forcing Martok off balance. The Klingon warriors' chanting intensified. Martok's grin widened. "Good. You do not simply defend, you counterattack." Again. The pace accelerated. Martok fought with the controlled fury of a warrior who had survived countless battles through skill and instinct. Master Chief fought with the calculated efficiency of a soldier who had been engineered for war and trained since childhood to be a living weapon. The bat'leths became blurs of motion, striking and blocking in patterns that made even Worf pause in admiration. "He fights well," Worf observed to no one in particular. "No wasted movement. Pure tactical thinking. That's what Spartans do," a voice said behind him. Worf turned to find Captain Lasky standing there, his holographic form transmitted from the Infinity. "They turn warfare into mathematics. Every movement calculated for maximum efficiency. There is no honor in such cold calculation," one of Martok's warriors growled. "There's no honor in losing either," Lasky replied. The chief has kept humanity alive for 30 years. That takes more than honor, it takes results. In the combat circle, Martok attempted a risky maneuver, spinning inside Master Chief's guard to strike from an unexpected angle. It was a move that had ended a dozen duels in his favor. But the Spartan's enhanced reaction time and Cortana's predictive algorithms saw it coming. Master Chief didn't just block, he caught Martok's batleth between his own blade and his armored forearm, locking the weapons together. For 3 seconds, they stood locked, testing each other's strength. Martok's single eye widened as he realized the armored human wasn't straining at all. The Spartan could have broken the hold with ease but chose not to, respecting the combat by making it competitive rather than one-sided. Martok barked a laugh and disengaged, stepping back. Enough. I have my answer. No submission. No first blood, one of his warriors protested. I said I wanted to fight a worthy warrior, Martok replied, lowering his batleth. I have done so. To continue would be to risk genuine injury, and that would be a waste. He approached Master Chief with his weapon held in salute position. You are a true warrior, Master Chief. Your people have bred soldiers of exceptional quality. The Klingon Empire would be honored to stand with such allies. Master Chief lowered his batleth. You fight with skill and experience, Chancellor. Your reputation is earned. As is yours. Martok turned to his warriors. Spread the word, the UNSC are warriors of honor. Any Klingon who treats them as less will answer to me personally. He looked back at Master Chief. Now, I wish to meet this shapeshifter who claims to rule without conquest. That interests me almost as much as your combat prowess. Rimuru stepped forward, raising a hand in greeting. That would be me. Rimuru Tempest, leader of the Jura Tempest Federation. Martok studied him suspiciously. You look like a child. Changelings use appearance to deceive. I'm actually about 5 years old, Rimuru said cheerfully. Depending on how you count. I was reincarnated as a slime, evolved into various forms, became a demon lord, and now I look like this. It's a long story. Demon lord? Martok's interest sharpened. Demons exist in your reality? Oh yes. Diablo here is one of the primordial demons, beings that existed before mortal civilizations. Terrifyingly powerful, generally malevolent, and absolutely loyal to me for reasons that still confuse me sometimes. Diablo bowed with theatrical flair. Rimuru-sama's magnificence inspired devotion. It was inevitable. Martok looked between them, then threw back his head and laughed. A shapeshifter who admits confusion, a demon who speaks of devotion, and warriors who fight like machines. This station has become far more interesting than any battle. He grabbed Rimuru's shoulder with surprising gentleness. Come. We will drink blood wine and you will tell me how one conquers without conquering. This I must understand. As the group began moving toward Quark's bar, Odo watched from his security office. Beside him, Superman and Wonder Woman had materialized, drawn by Odo's request for a meeting. You wanted to speak with us? Superman asked. Odo gestured toward the viewscreen showing Rimuru laughing at something Martok had said. I wanted to ask you about him. The shapeshifter. In my experience, beings with our abilities use them for deception, infiltration, control. But he seems different. Wonder Woman studied the screen thoughtfully. He reminds me of leaders I've known who understand that true power comes from inspiring loyalty, not demanding it. His subordinates follow him by choice. The founders believe that's impossible, Odo said quietly. They think solids, non-shapeshifters, are inherently chaotic and must be controlled. Rimuru's existence challenges everything they've built their empire upon. Which makes him dangerous to them, Batman said, emerging from the shadows. Odo didn't flinch, he'd known the detective was there. They'll want to eliminate him or corrupt him. Probably both. That's what concerns me, Odo admitted. The founders won't negotiate with him. They'll see him as a threat to their ideology. And when founders feel threatened, he trailed off, his liquid form rippling with distress. Superman's X-ray vision had been passively observing the Dominion fleet through the station's hull. The fleet outside is still growing. 28 ships now. They're not just watching anymore, they're preparing for action. Captain Sisko is aware, Odo said. He's trying to coordinate a diplomatic solution before this turns into a bloodbath. But with the Klingon here, 3 groups of unknown warriors, and the Dominion feeling threatened, he looked at Superman directly. Tell me honestly, if they attack, can you stop them without killing thousands of Jem'Hadar soldiers who have no choice but to follow orders? Superman's jaw tightened. That was the question that haunted him in every conflict, how to protect the innocent without becoming a killer himself. I'll do everything I can. But I'm not omnipotent, Constable. Sometimes there are no perfect solutions. An honest answer, Odo said. More than I expected. Thank you. In Ops, Sisko stood before the strategic display, watching the Dominion fleet assemble while tracking the various groups now occupying his station. The variables were spiraling beyond any scenario he could have imagined when he woke up this morning. Captain, Dax said quietly. I'm detecting increased energy signatures from the wormhole. The founders are sending something through. Something big. What kind of big? I don't know. The readings are unusual. Not a ship. Or at least not like any ship we've seen before. Sisko's hand moved to his comm badge. All senior staff to Ops. Alert our guests that we may have incoming hostiles. And someone tell Chancellor Martok to delay his drinking party. We've got work to do. The wormhole erupted with light, its ancient energies swirling as something massive emerged from the Gamma Quadrant. On every sensor across the station, alarms began screaming warnings that what was coming through defied classification. The female changeling had sent her response to the newcomers. And it was more terrible than anyone had anticipated. The wormhole's aperture expanded to its maximum diameter, distorting spacetime in ways that made even veteran DS9 personnel pause. What emerged was unlike any vessel in the Dominion's known arsenal. The structure was biological and technological simultaneously, a grotesque fusion that made Dax's scientific instruments scream contradictions. It measured 3 kilometers across, its surface a shifting mass of organic plating interwoven with weapon emplacements. Sensor readings showed it wasn't a ship in the conventional sense but rather a living construct, grown rather than built. What in the prophet's name is that? Kira breathed. O'Brien's fingers flew across his engineering console. It's registering life signs, thousands of them. But they're integrated into the structure itself. It's like the ship is the crew, or the crew is the ship. I can't tell where one ends and the other begins. Jem'Hadar biosignatures, Worf reported from Tactical, having rushed back to Ops. But modified. Enhanced. The genetic markers suggest accelerated evolution protocols. Dax looked up sharply. The founders have been experimenting with their soldiers. This isn't just a ship, it's a weapons platform crewed by genetically optimized Jem'Hadar bred specifically for this encounter. Sisko's comm badge chirped. Captain, this is Lasky aboard the Infinity. We're reading that thing too. Our AI is classifying it as a biological weapons platform, similar to what we encountered with the Flood, but more controlled. Recommend extreme caution. The Flood? Sisko asked. Parasitic organism that converts biomass into more of itself, Cortana's voice cut in. The UNSC fought a 30-year war to contain it. If the Dominion has something similar. They don't, Odo's voice interrupted as he materialized in Ops. Not exactly. But the founders have access to genetic engineering beyond anything the Federation can produce. They've created enhanced Jem'Hadar before, larger, stronger, more aggressive. This appears to be the next evolution. The biological construct moved with disturbing grace, positioning itself between DS9 and the Dominion fleet. A transmission came through, not audio but pure data, transmitted directly to every computer system on the station, the Infinity, and presumably to the Justice League and Rimuru's circle. Cortana's avatar materialized in ops, her form flickering with alarm. Captain Sisko, that wasn't a normal transmission. It was a direct neural interface attempt, trying to access biological systems, map cognitive patterns. It was probing for weaknesses. It tried to read our minds. Kira said incredulously. Unsuccessfully, Cortana confirmed. But the attempt itself tells us something. The founders are trying to understand what they're facing before committing to direct combat. On the Infinity's bridge, Lasky studied the tactical display with growing concern. Deploy defensive perimeter. All weapons online but hold fire. Someone get me a channel to DS9 and all the other groups. We need to coordinate if this thing attacks. In Quark's bar, the celebration between Martok and the newcomers came to an abrupt halt as the station's red alert klaxons blared. Rimuru's golden eyes unfocused slightly as Seal provided him with complete sensor analysis of the new arrival. Interesting, Rimuru murmured. Biological warfare platform. Genetically engineered soldiers integrated into a living ship structure. Efficient, if morally questionable. Martok stood, his warrior instincts overriding his curiosity. A challenge from the founders. They seek to test us. Or intimidate us into leaving, Rimuru added, his hand moving to his sword. A demonstration of their capabilities. Superman's superhearing had already picked up every conversation across the station. He stood, his expression grave. They're trying to provoke a response. Show overwhelming force to make us reconsider interfering in their war. Then perhaps we should show them why that strategy is flawed, Diablo purred, his demonic presence suddenly much more pronounced. The temperature in the bar dropped several degrees as reality itself seemed to bend around him. Stand down, Diablo, Rimuru ordered. We're not escalating this without understanding the full situation. Batman was already at a wall terminal, interfacing his suit's computer with the station's systems. The Dominion fleet hasn't moved. 28 ships maintaining defensive positions. This biological construct is alone, a vanguard or a test. They want to see how we respond. Then we respond with measured force, Wonder Woman said, her warrior's wisdom recognizing the tactical situation. Show capability without committing to total war. The Flash vibrated anxiously. Guys, I'm reading massive energy buildup in that thing. Multiple weapon systems coming online. I don't think they're here to talk. A voice, cold, feminine, absolute, filled every speaker on DS9, the Infinity, and transmitted to all three groups simultaneously. The female changeling's voice carried the weight of ancient authority and utter conviction. Unknown vessels and entities. You have entered Dominion space during a time of war. Your presence represents a disruption to the established order. We are the founders. We created the Dominion to bring order to chaos, to protect ourselves from the persecution of solids who fear what they cannot understand. You will submit to Dominion authority, or you will be eliminated. You have 1 hour to decide. Silence filled ops for 3 heartbeats. Then Sisko activated the station-wide communication system. This is Captain Benjamin Sisko. All personnel to battle stations. Prepare for potential hostilities. And someone get me the Master Chief, Superman, and Rimuru Tempest on a secure channel. Now. 90 seconds later, a holographic conference materialized in ops. Master Chief's armored form appeared via the Infinity's holographic systems. Superman and Wonder Woman stood in the station's primary conference room with Batman analyzing data in the background. Rimuru's holographic avatar showed him sitting calmly with his inner circle behind him. Chancellor Martok had insisted on being included and loomed in the background with Worf at his side. Opinions? Sisko asked without preamble. They're bluffing, Batman said immediately. If they wanted us dead, they'd have attacked already. This is psychological warfare, make us afraid so we leave voluntarily or submit without resistance. The Dominion doesn't bluff, Odo countered. The Founders believe in overwhelming force. If they sent that construct, they intend to use it. Then we destroy it before it can attack, Martok growled. Strike first, establish dominance, force them to negotiate from weakness. That starts a war, Sisko said. A war the Federation might not survive. Master Chief's tactical assessment was characteristically blunt. The UNSC's primary mission is still to repair the Infinity and return home. But we won't abandon allies who are threatened. If that construct attacks DS9, we'll engage. Superman's expression was troubled. I can hear inside that thing. The life signs, they're not just crewing it. They're part of it. Surgically integrated, genetically bonded. If we destroy that ship, we'll be killing thousands of soldiers who never had a choice. Welcome to the Dominion War, Kira said bitterly. Where every victory requires moral compromise. Rimuru leaned forward, his casual demeanor replaced by something more calculating. May I make a suggestion? Instead of responding with violence or submission, we respond with a third option, demonstration. We show the Founders that we understand their capabilities, and then we show them why attacking us would be catastrophic for everyone involved. Elaborate, Sisko said. The Founders think in terms of control and order. They've built an empire on the premise that they must dominate to survive. What if we prove that premise false? Show them that coexistence is possible without submission. They won't listen to philosophy, Odo said. I've tried. The Founders' worldview is absolute. Then we don't use philosophy, Rimuru replied. We use mathematics. Seal has been analyzing the Dominion fleet's capabilities. That biological construct is powerful, yes. But against the combined capabilities in this sector right now, the Infinity's firepower, the Justice League's abilities, my own forces, the Federation's defensive capabilities, and the Klingon fleet, the Dominion doesn't have enough ships to guarantee victory without unacceptable losses. Cortana's avatar nodded. I've run the same calculations. In a direct engagement, the Dominion would lose approximately 63% of their forces before achieving tactical objectives. And that's assuming we don't deploy our full capabilities. Which we haven't, Master Chief confirmed. The Infinity has weapon systems we haven't revealed yet. The Mac gun demonstration was the minimum necessary deterrent. Batman's eyes narrowed. You're suggesting we make them understand the cost-benefit analysis doesn't favor aggression. Game theory applied to interstellar politics. Exactly, Rimuru said. The Founders are logical, obsessively so, according to what I've learned. They'll respond to mathematical certainty more effectively than moral arguments. Martok laughed. I prefer the direct approach, crush them in battle and let the survivors spread tales of our prowess. But I admit, your way might prevent unnecessary Klingon casualties. Very well. What do you propose? The biological construct's weapons systems continued charging. Energy readings spiked across DS9 sensors. Whatever the Founders had created, it was preparing to demonstrate its capabilities. We have 45 minutes left, Sisko said. If we're going to implement this plan, we need to move fast. Commander Worf, coordinate with the Infinity's tactical officer. Major Kira, work with the Justice League to establish defensive positions around the station. And Rimuru. I'll handle the Founders directly, Rimuru said. With your permission, Captain, I'd like to enter the wormhole and visit their homeworld. It's time they understood what they're really dealing with. The conference room erupted in protests. That's suicide, Kira said. The Founders' homeworld is the most heavily defended location in the Gamma Quadrant, Worf added. They'll capture or kill you the moment you arrive, Odo said urgently. Rimuru, I appreciate the gesture, but you don't understand how paranoid the Founders are. Then it's time they learned that paranoia is expensive, Rimuru replied calmly. Diablo, Benimaru, you're with me. The rest stay here to protect the station if things go badly. Rimuru-sama, finally. Diablo's eyes gleamed with demonic joy. I have been waiting for permission to demonstrate our true capabilities. No killing unless absolutely necessary, Rimuru ordered. We're proving a point, not starting a genocide. You take all the fun out of everything, Diablo sighed dramatically. Superman stood. I'm going with you. If you're walking into the heart of enemy territory, you need backup. As am I, Wonder Woman declared. This is precisely the kind of diplomatic mission that requires warriors' wisdom. Batman remained seated, his tactical mind already working through contingencies. I'll stay here. Someone needs to coordinate the defense if this goes wrong. Flash, Green Lantern, you're with me. Master Chief looked at Captain Lasky's hologram. Captain, permission to join the infiltration team. Denied, Lasky said immediately. We need you here if the station comes under attack. Let the others handle first contact with the Founders. With respect, sir. That's an order, Master Chief. The Spartan's helmet dipped in acknowledgement, though Cortana's avatar looked distinctly unhappy about the decision. Sisko stood, his command presence filling the conference room despite it being a holographic projection. All right. We have a plan. Risky, probably insane, but better than the alternatives. Rimuru, you have 2 hours. If you're not back by then, we assume the worst and prepare for full defensive operations. 2 hours is generous, Rimuru said with a slight smile. I'll only need 1. As the conference dissolved and the participants moved to their assigned positions, Odo approached Rimuru before he could leave. The changeling's liquid features carried an expression of deep concern. Rimuru. The Founders, my people, they're not like your enemies back home. They don't think like solids. They exist in the Great Link, a collective consciousness where individual identity dissolves. Reasoning with them is difficult. Rimuru placed a hand on Odo's shoulder, and for a moment, the changeling felt something he hadn't experienced since infancy, the presence of another being who truly understood what it meant to exist as something fundamentally different from those around you. Odo, I was human once. Then I became a slime. Then a demon lord. Then a true dragon. I've existed as collective consciousness, individual identity, and everything in between. If anyone can talk to beings who exist outside normal perception, it's me. And if they attack you? Rimuru's golden eyes flashed with something ancient and powerful. Then they'll learn why the Eastern Empire, the Western nations, and even the demon lords themselves chose negotiation over warfare with the Rimuru Tempest Federation. Not because we're weak, Odo. Because we're not. 20 minutes later, a small shuttlecraft departed Deep Space Nine, heading directly toward the wormhole. Aboard were Rimuru, Diablo, Benimaru, Superman, and Wonder Woman. The biological construct tracked their approach but didn't fire. The Founders wanted to see what these beings would do. On DS9, Batman stood in ops beside Sisko, watching the shuttle disappear into the wormhole's swirling energies. This could start a war we can't win, Sisko said quietly. Or end one before it escalates further, Batman replied. Time will tell. In the Gamma Quadrant, on a world covered entirely by ocean, the Great Link rippled with curiosity and concern. The Founders had watched the shuttle enter the wormhole. They had analyzed the beings aboard. And they had decided that these variables must be understood, controlled, or eliminated. The female changeling separated from the link, taking solid form to address the Vorta and Jem'Hadar commanders assembled for her orders. The visitors are coming to us. How convenient. Prepare containment protocols. I want them studied, analyzed, and if possible, converted to assets. And if conversion fails? She didn't need to finish. The Jem'Hadar knew their orders. Victory is life. And the founders would accept nothing less than absolute victory. The shuttlecraft emerged from the wormhole into the Gamma Quadrant, and immediately every sensor screamed warnings. The Founders' Homeworld, designated by the Federation as Founders' World for lack of a proper name, orbited a dim red star, its surface covered entirely by a pale lavender ocean. But it wasn't the planet that triggered alarms. It was the defense network. 200 orbital weapons platforms. 57 capital ships arranged in concentric defensive shells. Thousands of automated defense drones that swarmed like metallic insects. And in the upper atmosphere, energy signatures that suggested the founders had weaponized the planet's ionosphere itself. Well, Superman said, his X-ray vision cataloging every threat, they certainly take security seriously. This is the most heavily defended location in the Dominion, Rimuru observed, his hand resting casually on his sword hilt despite the visible tension in his shoulders. If this goes wrong, fighting our way out will be challenging. Challenging implies difficulty, Diablo purred, his demonic presence filling the shuttle's small cabin with an almost tangible aura of menace. This would merely be vigorous exercise. Diablo, what did I say about threatening intergalactic superpowers? Rimuru asked without looking up from his analysis of the planetary defenses. You said no killing unless absolutely necessary, Rimuru-sama. I am merely preparing contingencies for absolute necessity. Wonder Woman studied the demon with warrior's interest. You're not entirely mortal, are you? I can sense something primal about your nature. Similar to the gods of Olympus, but darker. Primordial demon, Diablo confirmed with a theatrical bow despite sitting. I existed before your universe's concept of time had fully solidified. I have witnessed civilizations rise and fall like morning dew. And I have chosen to serve Rimuru-sama because his magnificence transcends mere mortality. You're making me sound pretentious again, Rimuru sighed. Impossible, Rimuru-sama. One cannot exaggerate perfection. The shuttle's communication system activated. Not a hail, but a direct transmission that bypassed standard channels and manifested as a voice that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere simultaneously. Visitors. You approach the Founders' Homeworld uninvited. This is unprecedented. Explain yourselves or be destroyed. Rimuru activated the response channel. This is Rimuru Tempest, leader of the Jura Tempest Federation. I'm here to discuss the recent ultimatum issued to Deep Space Nine and the various parties currently located there. I believe we have matters to discuss that would benefit from face-to-face conversation. Silence stretched for 15 seconds. Then, the founders do not negotiate with solids. You will be granted audience only to explain why we should not eliminate you as threats. Proceed to landing coordinates being transmitted now. Any deviation will be considered hostile action. Friendly bunch, Superman muttered. They've been persecuted by solids for millennia, Rimuru replied. From their perspective, we're the potential threat, not them. Though the whole, creating an empire of genetically engineered soldiers to dominate the quadrant response might be overcompensation. The shuttle descended through the weapons network, every platform tracking their approach with targeting solutions that made even Rimuru uncomfortable. They landed on a small island, one of perhaps a dozen solid structures visible on the entire planet's surface. The island was artificial, constructed from some material that sensors identified as organic in origin but harder than titanium. As they disembarked, the landing pad itself rippled. What they had taken for solid ground was actually compressed changeling mass, dozens, perhaps hundreds of founders in their liquid state, forming the very structure they stood upon. Showmanship, Wonder Woman observed. They want us to understand we're completely within their power. Let them think that, Rimuru said quietly. The best negotiations happen when both sides believe they have the advantage. The liquid surface rose, coalescing into humanoid form. The female changeling stood before them, her features austere and ageless, her eyes carrying the weight of eons. Behind her, 4 more founders took shape, each radiating an aura of absolute authority. I am the founder, the female changeling said, speaking as though she represented not just herself but the entire species. You are Rimuru Tempest. A shapeshifter who claims to rule without domination. An impossibility. A deception. Not a deception, Rimuru replied calmly. A different philosophy. I rule because my people choose to follow, not because I force them to. Choice is chaos, another founder stated, its voice without gender or individuality. The Great Link has learned this truth through millennia of persecution. Solids, non-shapeshifters, fear what they cannot understand. They attack what they fear. Order must be imposed to ensure survival. Superman stepped forward, his presence radiating the confidence of someone who had faced gods and emerged victorious. I'm called Superman. I'm not from this universe, but I've seen empires built on fear before. They all fall eventually. Control through force creates resentment, and resentment breeds rebellion. The Kryptonian, the female changeling said, and Superman started slightly at the recognition. Yes, we have analyzed you. Your biology, your capabilities, your weaknesses. You are powered by stellar radiation, a dependency that can be exploited. You believe in justice and hope, concepts that can be manipulated. Analyzing someone's biology is very different from understanding their character, Superman replied evenly. The founder's attention shifted to Wonder Woman. The Amazon. Forged by gods, trained as a warrior, yet you preach peace. Contradiction defines you. Wisdom is understanding when to fight and when to negotiate, Wonder Woman said. Strength without wisdom is just violence. I've come to determine which you prefer. And the demons, the female changeling's gaze moved to Diablo and Benimaru. Beings of magical origin who defy our scientific understanding. You should not exist in a rational universe, yet here you stand. Diablo's grin widened, revealing teeth that were perhaps too sharp, too numerous. Rationality is overrated, founder. The universe is far stranger and more wonderful than your limited perspective allows. Diablo, Rimuru warned. My apologies, Rimuru-sama. The female changeling's expression didn't change, but something in her posture suggested calculation. You brought demons and alien warriors to negotiate with us. This suggests either confidence or foolishness. Which is it, Rimuru Tempest? Neither, Rimuru replied. I brought them because I wanted you to understand something important. The galaxy has changed. You've built your empire on the assumption that you're the most powerful force in the quadrant. That assumption is now false. The surrounding ocean erupted. Hundreds of founders emerged from the liquid, taking humanoid forms, surrounding the landing pad in a living wall of shape-shifting bodies. Overhead, the weapons platforms powered up, energy readings spiking across every spectrum. You dare threaten the founders on their own homeworld, the female changeling's voice carried fury barely contained by her rigid control. Not a threat, Rimuru said, his voice remaining calm despite the display of force. An observation. Right now, in the Alpha Quadrant, there are 3 groups of beings whose combined capabilities exceed anything the Dominion can deploy. The UNSC Infinity alone could devastate your fleet before you could mount an effective response. Superman could disable your weapons platforms in minutes. And he paused, his golden eyes gleaming with something ancient. I could turn this entire ocean into a desert before you could stop me. The temperature dropped. Reality itself seemed to bend around Rimuru as his true nature began to manifest, not entirely, but enough to make even the founders pause. But I won't, Rimuru continued, his voice gentle again. Because unlike the solids who persecuted you, I understand what it means to be different. I was weak once. Powerless. I died afraid and alone. When I was reborn, I promised myself I would build a world where the strong protect the weak, where different species can coexist without fear. The female changeling studied him with new intensity. You speak of death and rebirth. You claim to understand persecution. Yet you rule a federation. How is that not domination? Because my subordinates can leave any time they want, Rimuru said simply. Diablo, tell her. If you chose to abandon me right now, would I stop you? Diablo's expression became uncharacteristically serious. Rimuru-sama would be disappointed, certainly. Saddened, perhaps. But he would not prevent my departure. That is why I will never leave. True loyalty cannot be commanded, only earned. One of the other founders spoke, its voice carrying confusion. This contradicts our understanding of power dynamics. Superior force should compel obedience. It compels fear, Wonder Woman corrected. Not obedience. Not loyalty. Your Jem'Hadar soldiers follow orders because they're genetically programmed to. Your Vorta serve because they're engineered for worship. But what happens when that programming breaks? When someone offers them a choice? It never breaks, the female changeling stated. We design our servants perfectly. Odo broke free, Rimuru pointed out gently. Your own child, raised by solids, chose justice over domination. That should tell you something about the relationship between control and genuine loyalty. The female changeling's liquid features rippled, the first sign of emotion they'd seen. Odo is anomalous. He does not represent. He represents possibility, Superman interrupted. The possibility that changelings and solids can coexist without one dominating the other. Isn't that worth exploring? We tried coexistence, another founder said, its voice heavy with ancient pain. We were persecuted, hunted, killed for being different. The Great Link remembers. We will never be vulnerable again. I understand that fear, Rimuru said. I really do. But you're not protecting yourselves anymore, you're creating the very enemies you fear. Every world you conquer, every species you subjugate, creates more people who hate and fear changelings. You're perpetuating the cycle. Benimaru had been silent, observing with a warrior's tactical eye. Now he spoke, his voice carrying the weight of someone who had lived through similar conflicts. In our world, Rimuru-sama faced a similar choice. After gaining power, he could have conquered. Could have used fear to prevent anyone from threatening our nation. Instead, he built alliances. Offered cooperation. And when we were attacked, those allies stood with us not because they feared us, but because they believed in what we represented. Sentiment, the female changeling dismissed. Emotions cloud judgment. Emotions create civilization, Wonder Woman countered. Logic alone leads to cold efficiency, but it doesn't build communities. It doesn't inspire sacrifice. Your soldiers die for you because they're programmed to. Our allies would die for us because they choose to. The female changeling was silent for a long moment. Around them, the hundreds of founders remained still, their collective consciousness processing this unprecedented situation. Finally, she spoke again. You present an interesting argument. But words are meaningless without proof. You claim your way is superior. Demonstrate it. How? Rimuru asked. We will test your subordinates, the female changeling said. We will offer them freedom from your service, resources to build their own power base, everything they could desire. If they remain loyal despite having the choice to abandon you, perhaps your philosophy has merit. Diablo laughed, a sound that made the very air shudder. Oh, this will be entertaining. You're that confident? The female changeling asked. Rimuru-sama, Diablo said, his demonic eyes gleaming with absolute conviction, could offer me godhood and independence, and I would refuse. Not because I lack ambition, but because serving him is more fulfilling than any power I could achieve alone. That is what you founders fail to understand. True greatness inspires devotion that transcends self-interest. The female changeling turned to Benimaru. And you? What keeps you in service to this, slime? Benimaru's hand moved to his sword, not threateningly, but reflexively. Rimuru saved my people when we were on the brink of extinction. He gave us purpose, protection, and most importantly, choice. I serve him because he is worthy of service, not because I have no alternative. Genetic programming could create the same loyalty, a founder argued. But would it be real? Superman asked. Would it mean anything if your soldiers followed you only because they had no choice? Where's the honor in that? Where's the meaning? The female changeling's expression remained neutral, but something in her stance suggested deep consideration. You have given us much to contemplate. But understand this, the Dominion will not simply dissolve because you present philosophical arguments. We have built an empire over centuries. That empire protects us from persecution. Without it, we are vulnerable. Then don't dissolve it, Rimuru said. Transform it. Turn the Dominion from a conquering empire into a federation of willing members. Keep your military strength, but use it for defense rather than expansion. You'd be surprised how many species would ally with you if given the choice. And if we refuse, the female changeling asked. If we determine that your presence threatens our security and must be eliminated? The temperature dropped again. Superman's eyes began to glow red. Wonder Woman's hand moved to her lasso. Diablo's grin widened to inhuman proportions. And Rimuru's golden eyes flashed with something that made even the Founder's ancient consciousness pause. Then you'll discover why every major power in my universe chose negotiation over warfare with the Rimuru Tempest Federation, Rimuru said quietly. Not because we're peaceful. Because we're terrifying when provoked. The standoff held for 5 heartbeats. Then the female changeling did something unprecedented in Founder history. She laughed. You are either the bravest or most foolish beings we have encountered, she said. Perhaps both. Very well. We will not attack Deep Space Nine or your vessels. Yet. But this is not peace, this is observation. We will watch how your philosophy functions in practice. And if it proves false, if your subordinates betray you, if your ideals collapse under pressure, then we will know that our way is correct. Fair enough, Rimuru said. And if our way proves successful? If we demonstrate that cooperation is more effective than control? Then perhaps, the female changeling said slowly, as if the words pained her, we will reconsider our methods. But do not expect swift change. The Great Link moves slowly. What you ask would require us to question everything we have built. All I ask is that you consider the possibility, Rimuru replied. That's more than most enemies offer each other. As they returned to the shuttle, Superman leaned close to Rimuru. Did we just negotiate a truce with a genocidal empire by appealing to their logic? Technically, we negotiated a wait-and-see agreement, Rimuru corrected. But yes, essentially. And you're confident your people won't betray you? Because if Diablo or Benimaru decide to take the Founder's offer, they won't, Rimuru said with absolute certainty. That's the difference between loyalty and programming. I trust them completely. As the shuttle lifted off, returning toward the wormhole, the Founders watched in silence. The female changeling stood alone on the landing pad, contemplating the impossible conversation that had just occurred. In the Great Link, thousands of voices debated. 3 days after the confrontation at the Founder's homeworld, Deep Space Nine had settled into an uneasy equilibrium. The Dominion fleet maintained a watchful distance, neither advancing nor fully withdrawing. The biological construct lingered near the wormhole like a sentinel, its thousands of integrated Jem'Hadar soldiers waiting for orders that hadn't yet come. And aboard the station, 3 groups of displaced warriors tried to make sense of their situation while Federation engineers worked frantically to understand technologies that defied conventional physics. In engineering, Chief O'Brien stood shoulder to shoulder with Cortana's holographic avatar, both studying the Infinity slipspace drive schematics displayed on a dozen screens simultaneously. It's brilliant and terrifying in equal measure, O'Brien admitted, wiping sweat from his brow. You're literally tearing holes in reality and hoping the structural integrity holds long enough to transit. One miscalculation and you could scatter your molecules across 17 dimensions. 18, actually, Cortana corrected. And yes, slip space navigation requires computational precision beyond organic capability. That's why the UNSC developed AI specifically for ship operations. No human could calculate the trajectories fast enough. Which brings us to our problem, O'Brien said, pulling up a new schematic. Your drive's quantum resonance coils are completely incompatible with our subspace field generators. It's like trying to merge oil and water, fundamentally different states of matter that refuse to integrate. Dax looked up from her own console where she'd been running theoretical models. But what if we're approaching this wrong? We've been trying to adapt slip-space technology to work with subspace. What if instead we create a hybrid system, something that can transition between both states? A dimensional bridge, Cortana said, her processing core lighting up with possibilities. Use subspace as a stabilizing medium while the slip-space drive creates the rupture. The warp field would act as a buffer zone between normal space and slipstream space. That's actually insane enough to work, O'Brien said slowly. But we'd need materials that can withstand the stress of existing in both states simultaneously. Dilithium might work if we can modify its crystalline matrix. The Infinity has experimental materials from Forerunner installations, Cortana offered. Remnants of a civilization that existed millions of years before humanity. Their technology operated on principles we still don't fully understand. If we combined Forerunner materials with Federation dilithium. The three of them stared at each other, scientific excitement overriding exhaustion. This could take weeks, Dax warned. Or it could revolutionize faster-than-light travel for both our universes, O'Brien countered. Then we'd better get started, Cortana said. I'll have the Infinity transport sample materials to DS9. Chief, prepare your engineering bay for some very unusual experiments. In the station's holosuit, converted into a training facility, Master Chief faced off against Wonder Woman in hand-to-hand combat while Batman observed from the sidelines with Worf. The Spartan and the Amazon had been sparring for 20 minutes, and neither had gained significant advantage. Wonder Woman's divine speed and strength met Master Chief's augmented reflexes and Mjolnir armor in a dance of precision strikes and tactical counters. She swept low, he vaulted over her attack. He attempted a grapple. She broke his hold with a twist that would have dislocated a normal human's arms. Fascinating, Worf murmured. I have never seen two warriors so perfectly matched yet so completely different in approach. She's been training for thousands of years, Batman observed. He's been training since age 6. She relies on instinct and experience. He relies on calculated precision and technological enhancement. The question is which philosophy ultimately proves superior. Or whether the answer is neither, Worf replied. Perhaps true mastery requires both approaches. Wonder Woman caught Master Chief's punch, her bracers absorbing the impact that would have shattered concrete. You fight well, Spartan. But you fight like a machine, efficient, calculated, without passion. Passion gets soldiers killed, Master Chief replied, executing a counter-move that forced her back 3 steps. Discipline keeps them alive. Discipline without heart is just going through motions, Wonder Woman countered, her lasso suddenly in hand, its golden glow filling the holosuit. Why do you fight, John? What drives you beyond orders and duty? The question made Master Chief pause, a fraction of a second, barely perceptible, but Wonder Woman caught it. The lasso hadn't touched him, but the question struck deeper than any physical blow. I fight because humanity needs soldiers, Master Chief said finally. Someone has to stand between civilians and the things that want to kill them. That's what Spartans do. But who are you beneath the armor? Wonder Woman pressed. The man, not the soldier. There is no difference, Master Chief replied. I was 6 years old when they took me. Trained me. Augmented me. The man I might have been died when I became a Spartan. The holosuit fell silent. Even Batman, normally imperturbable, showed a flicker of something, sympathy, perhaps, or recognition of a kindred spirit who had sacrificed childhood for a greater purpose. "That's the saddest thing I've heard in centuries," Wonder Woman said quietly. "You were robbed of choice, John. Made into a weapon before you could understand what you were losing. And because of that, billions of humans survived the Covenant War," Master Chief countered. "I don't regret what I am." "I didn't say you should," Wonder Woman replied. "But perhaps here, in this universe where your war isn't being fought, you could discover who John 117 is when he's not Master Chief." The Spartan didn't respond, but Cortana's voice came through his helmet's private channel. "She has a point, you know. We might be here for months. Maybe longer. You could take a day off. Try being human for a change." "I'll consider it," Master Chief said, which both Cortana and Wonder Woman recognized as a polite deflection. Across the station in Quark's bar, Rimuru sat with Odo at a corner table, watching the diverse crowd of Starfleet personnel, Bajorans, traders, and visitors from a dozen species interact in the chaotic democracy that characterized frontier stations. "This is what the Founders fear," Odo said quietly. "This chaos. This unpredictability. In the Great Link, everything is ordered, controlled, harmonious. Here, people argue, compete, sometimes fight. But they also cooperate, build, create. The Founders can't understand how order emerges from chaos. Because they're trying to impose order from outside," Rimuru observed. "But true order comes from within, from individuals choosing to cooperate because it benefits everyone. Your Federation understands this. That's why it's lasted so long despite being a democratic alliance of hundreds of worlds." "The Founders would say democracy is inefficient," Odo replied. "That it leads to paralysis and compromise when decisive action is needed. Sometimes inefficiency is the price of freedom," Rimuru said. "I've ruled as a near-absolute monarch at times. It's efficient, yes. I can make decisions instantly, implement policies without debate. But I also know I'm fallible. That's why I listen to my subordinates, encourage dissent, and sometimes let their wisdom override my decisions." Odo's liquid features rippled with curiosity. "You're a demon lord with the power to reshape reality. You could rule as a god. Why don't you?" "Because I remember being powerless," Rimuru said simply. "I died in my previous life because I couldn't protect someone I cared about. When I was reborn with power, I promised myself I'd use it to protect others, not dominate them. Power without purpose is just tyranny with a different name." Across the bar, Diablo sat with the Flash, both engaged in a conversation that was simultaneously occurring at normal speed and super speed, the demon somehow able to perceive and respond to the speedster's accelerated temporal state. "So you exist outside normal causality?" Flash asked, his words compressing into microseconds. "Like, you perceive all possible timelines simultaneously?" "Not quite," Diablo replied, his demon nature allowing him to process information at rates that made even the Speed Force seem pedestrian. "I exist in the present but remember the future as potentiality. Time for primordial demons is less a river and more a web of possibility. Every choice creates branches, and I can perceive several branches ahead." "That's terrifying and awesome," Flash said. "Can you see what happens to us? Whether we get home?" "The future is uncertain even for me," Diablo admitted. "Your presence here has created perturbations in causality that even my perception cannot fully map. But I can tell you this, the path forward involves choices none of you expect to face. Some will choose duty over desire. Others will choose compassion over victory. And at least one will choose sacrifice." "That's ominous," Flash said. "Also really vague. Can you be more specific? Where would be the fun in that?" Diablo's grin widened. "Besides, knowing the future often ensures it happens. Better to face each moment with uncertainty and adapt accordingly." In the station's command center, Sisko met with representatives from Starfleet Command via subspace communication. Admiral Ross's weathered face filled the view screen, his expression grave. Captain, Starfleet Intelligence has been analyzing the situation. 3 groups of unknown origin with capabilities that exceed anything in our databases. The tactical implications are concerning. Concerning how, Admiral? Sisko asked, though he suspected he knew the answer. Section 31 wants them, Ross said bluntly. They see these groups as assets that could decisively end the Dominion War. They've already approached me about authorization to recruit or conscript these individuals. Conscript? Sisko's voice hardened. Admiral, these people aren't Federation citizens. They're not even from our universe. We have no authority to conscript them into anything. Section 31 doesn't concern itself with legal niceties, Ross replied. I'm telling you this as a warning, Benjamin. Watch your back. If 31 decides these groups are too valuable to leave autonomous, they'll act. And they won't care about diplomatic protocols. The transmission ended. Sisko stood alone in his office, contemplating the implications. Section 31, the Federation's illegal, unacknowledged intelligence agency that operated in the shadows, had saved the Federation more than once through methods that violated every principle the organization claimed to uphold. They'd poisoned the Founders' Homeworld, assassinated political leaders, manipulated entire civilizations. If they decided Master Chief, Superman, or Rimuru were threats or assets to be controlled. Sisko activated his comm badge. Sisko to Odo. I need to see you in my office. Now. And bring our guests, all of them. We have a problem. 30 minutes later, the station's largest conference room held an assembly that would have seemed impossible a week ago. Sisko stood at the head of the table, flanked by his senior staff. To his right sat Master Chief with Captain Lasky's holographic avatar, Cortana hovering nearby. To his left, Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman represented the Justice League. At the far end, Rimuru sat with Diablo and Benimaru, while Shuna served tea that somehow remained perfectly hot despite the room's environmental controls. I'll be direct, Sisko began. Section 31 knows about you. All of you. And they're planning to make contact. Section 31. Superman asked. The Federation's Black Ops Division, Batman said before anyone else could answer. I've been analyzing the station's database. They don't officially exist, operate outside legal oversight, and use methods the Federation publicly condemns. Assassination, biological warfare, manipulation. They're what happens when an idealistic democracy decides it needs monsters to fight monsters. You sound like you approve, Kira said coldly. I sound like I recognize the type, Batman corrected. I've dealt with similar organizations. They justify atrocities in the name of security and call it patriotism. Section 31 has saved the Federation multiple times, Worf argued. Their methods are distasteful, but effective. Effectiveness without ethics is just evil with better public relations, Wonder Woman said flatly. What do they want with us? They want to recruit you, Sisko said. Or failing that, neutralize you as potential threats. Section 31 doesn't accept variables they can't control. Master Chief's helmet turned toward Sisko. Are you warning us or threatening us, Captain? Warning, Sisko said firmly. I don't work for Section 31. I don't approve of their methods. But I'm also pragmatic enough to know they exist and they're dangerous. If they approach you, you need to understand who you're dealing with. Let them come, Diablo purred. I would enjoy educating them about the hierarchy of power. Diablo, Rimuru said warningly. My apologies, Rimuru-sama. But truly, these Section 31 agents sound delightfully overconfident. It would be educational to demonstrate the difference between Federation Black Ops and actual supernatural horror. No one is demonstrating anything, Sisko said. This is exactly what I'm trying to prevent, an incident that turns potential allies into enemies. Batman leaned forward, his detective instincts engaged. Captain, you're telling us about Section 31 despite it being classified information. Why? What do you want from us? Sisko met Batman's white-lensed gaze directly. I want you to understand that the Federation isn't monolithic. We have ideals, exploration, diplomacy, cooperation, but we also have shadows. People who do terrible things believing they're protecting those ideals. If Section 31 approaches The Great Link is changing. test wasn't technology or magic or superhuman abilities. It was integrity. It was hope. It was the courage to be better than circumstances demanded. And perhaps, in the end, that was the greatest victory of all.